Hello everybody, and welcome to Discover Economics Black History Month event in partnership with the Black Economists Network. My name is Anu, I will be your chair today. And just a little bit about myself, I am the communications officer here at Discover Economics. I am also a recent economics graduate and a current master's student at the London School of Economics. In addition to that, I am the founder of a social enterprise called Black Money. And we have a bunch of amazing guests in today's events, which I will introduce later. But in the meantime, I thought, let me tell you a bit about Discover Economics. So economics has a diversity problem. About 30% of undergraduates who study economics at university, just under 30% are women. And when you go into ethnic minorities or children who went to state schools, that number shrinks. That further develops in A-levels, where about 1 in 6 boys pick A-level economics to study, and that number is 1 in 17 girls. So there's a significant issue there. And this is a problem because the lack of cognitive diversity means that the economists who are key policymakers in government and in business aren't representative of the society that they're supposed to be making decisions of. And this can lead to ineffective policies that disproportionately are at the detriment of certain groups of society. So Discover Economics was essentially created by the Royal Economic Society to broaden the appeal of economics to potential students, to change their perceptions of economics and economists, and also to attract more students from underrepresented groups into the discipline and to choose to study it as well. So the aim of this event today is not to tell you all the facts about the lack of diversity, but rather to celebrate inspirational Black economists and bring them to your classrooms all across the UK and in celebration of Black History Month. I'm just going to introduce Felicia she was the founder of the Black Economics Network, to say a few words about the network and what they do.
Thank you, Annie, for that great introduction. And it's really a pleasure to be working in collaboration with Discover Economics for this event, especially in Black History Month. So my name is Felicia. I am an economist currently working in the Resolution Foundation, which is a think tank that focuses on low to middle income public policies. For low to middle income families and public policies. And I'm also the founder and the director of the Black Economists Network. So a little bit about the network. The Black Economists Network is basically an organization dedicated to providing a platform through which professionals and students of Black, African, American, Caribbean descent in economics and related fields can get together, connect, collaborate, share ideas, and support one another in their career journeys. We also seek to challenge the lack of diversity within economic related fields by bringing together the Black people, as well as working alongside organizations to work on diversity initiatives and just raising the profile of Black people in economics, because as Annie mentioned earlier, there is a diversity problem, especially when we look at the number of Black people within the field. So I guess I will just start a little bit with why I started it and then can move on to some of the speakers. But essentially, I completed a degree in economics at the University of Manchester. Then I did my master's at LSE. And I realized, academia and economics have a problem with Black people. There's no one that looks like me there. But I thought this was just an issue of academia. Then I started my job in the government economic service, realized that this was a much wider issue. I delved a little bit deeper into it, realized it was across the whole board, from think tanks to public departments to private sector. And I just wanted to meet people. I just wanted to meet people who share the same experience as me, what they thought about economics, any perspectives that are different from the mainstream we want to talk about. And I guess that's when I founded it in November of 2019, so literally kind of just before the pandemic. And since then we've grown. We have 4 main aims. So the aim 1 is to connect, which is connecting people, build a community of Black economists that can inspire and encourage each other. The second aim is to educate, which is about making sure people have the right skills, tools, and resources to really equip them with the knowledge they need for this career path. The third is to inspire. So this is about, doing events, hosting events, doing sessions and running initiatives that can really inspire people, not just Black economists, but the wider audience into why economics is important and why diversity in economics is important. And finally, the fourth one is to influence. So this is about directly working with organizations to actually challenge the lack of diversity in the field, because the problem isn't with us, the problem is with the wider sector. So we all need to work in collaboration to make that work. So that's a little bit more about the Black Economists Network, which I call TBEN for short. If you want to learn more, you want to join, you want to keep up with what we're doing, you can find us on Twitter, you can find us on Instagram, LinkedIn, and our website, which is just tben.co.uk. I'll put it in the chat, but that's me. And thank you so much for attending. And I'm going to hand over to Annie now so she can introduce our lovely guest to this event.
Thank you, Felicia, for that intro. And thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to be with us and to address all the students. And so our first guest is, apologies if I say your name wrong, but our first guest is David Afikuyomi, and he's a current PhD student at the University of Bristol and a previous economist in the government.
Thank you, Anu. And no, yes, you did say my name correctly. Thanks.
Okay.
So hi, everyone. My name is David Afikuyomi, and like Anu said, I'm currently studying for a Master's in Research and PhD at the University of Bristol. I know I'm a sub, so I'm a last minute change. So you might not have seen my name on all the flyers for the event, but you know how back in school, sometimes the sub is more fun than the actual teacher. So hopefully we get that same scenario here. But I think the previous speaker also worked at Goldman Sachs. I also worked for 3 months in Barclays Investment Bank. So if there are any like investment bank type questions, I'll try and also give them a shot. So if you're in the audience and you have any questions in that sector, I can also try and answer them. But yeah, so me, I guess a bit about my story, my background in economics. So I started my economics journey, I would say in GCSEs actually, when I studied business studies. And I was just very fascinated with the concept of buying and selling and how businesses made decisions, like how they will price different goods. So, you know, a company like Starbucks has like 3 different sizes for its coffee, and just trying to figure out why those sizes and the prices don't correlate. So you get like, I don't know, a small coffee for like £3, then a medium one for like maybe £3.50, and then a large one for like £3.75. It's kind of like trying to figure out like what determines those different pricing decisions. And then later on, I learned how like they do that, just basically try and extract as much money as possible from different consumers. So in business studies, that was kind of when I was first introduced to the world of econ or business in general. And then I decided to take up an economics at A level, at AS. And I loved it. I think I was very interested, particularly in like the government aspect of things. So when I started doing economics at A level, the financial recession, which happened in 2007, had just kind of like the aftermath. So basically what happened was the financial markets, the financial sector was basically in disarray, and economies, people were losing jobs as a result of something that happened in banking, essentially. But the fact that there were things that some banks had done, and the financial sector had something wrong in the financial sector, had led to like physical people, like actual people losing jobs, people, essentially going into poverty as a result of something in the financial sector. I felt that link was very interesting, and I wanted to find out more about why something like that would happen, and more importantly, what can be done about those types of situations. So yeah, I did economics at AS, carried it on to A2, and then I decided to do it at university level as well. So I did my undergrad at University of Bristol, and then I did a master's in economics as well at the London School of Economics. And then I worked at the UK Civil Service, so the UK government, for another 2 years, where I worked in the Department for International Trade. And then I moved to Nigeria actually, where I worked as the editor-in-chief of a media publication there called Steers Business. So it's a business publication in Nigeria. And then I've now gone full circle and I'm back in Bristol, as Anu said, aspiring to complete a PhD. So yeah, that's my, I guess, brief history. So I guess now I'll just maybe go along and tell some potential interesting bits within that history, and then talk a bit about diversity, at least my experience with diversity, and hopefully try and shed some light on some interesting aspects of economics. So yeah, I think as I mentioned, interest at GCSE, then decided to do it for A level, and then started economics at university. So when I started economics at university, I guess first things first, I think probably like most of the other speakers, there was definitely this diversity shock. I guess there weren't many Black people studying economics. I think in my year, probably around out of 100, I'd say maybe like 15 to 20, which an average on all UK universities is actually pretty decent. When I went to LSE, it was much worse. I think I was the only Black student studying a master's in economics there. So, but it did, I did wonder, oh, okay, this is interesting. What's happening here? And as I got more into like the detail about economics and what was happening, I then started to ask the question of, okay, so if this is how things happen in like a developed economy, so a lot of the economic models you'd see and come across at university level, say for example, if I don't know how many of you would have started any econ classes at A level or below, but there's this concept where a government decides to increase spending or decides to lower interest rates, and that's supposed to lead to benefits to the whole economy. So the government spends more money, then obviously people get more money, and then it's beneficial. Similarly, the government decides to reduce interest rates, so the rate at which you borrow money, if it becomes cheaper to borrow money, and then again, the economy rises. And what I was going back and forth between Nigeria and the UK, which Nigeria is originally where I'm from. And I started to ask questions and learn more about the Nigerian economy. And I guess what I found was that, the different things we learn about, you know, interest rates having an impact or government spending having an impact is different in different countries. So, for example, in Nigeria, interest rates don't really have an impact on the economy in the same way that they would in, say, the UK. So that really sparked my interest, and my interest was piqued at that point. And so I decided to dive more into how different countries have different impacts. And I think that's probably the crux of why diversity in economics is important, because even when you solve diversity in the other spheres, say something like more diverse ethnic backgrounds, more diverse social class, more diverse gender, there's also the diversity of thoughts, right? So everybody is different, and even within say gender or ethnic groups, we're all different and we all think differently. And so that diversity of thought is also very important. And I think for me, because of my experiences back in Nigeria, I was able to bring a different way of thinking about economics. And that was something that helped me, throughout my career in economics. Why did they not have as much impact in Nigeria? Good question. So Nigeria's financial system is not as complex as it is in the UK. So in fact, it's not even as complex as somewhere like South Africa. So let me give an example. In South Africa, you have around 100,000 every year. 100,000 new cars are bought in South Africa, whereas in Nigeria, only around 1,000 to 10, like around 10,000, I think is the stat. New cars are bought in Nigeria every year. The reason is that Nigeria, there's a big preference for buying used cars in Nigeria, whereas in South Africa and say the UK, more people buy new cars. And the reason is that in Nigeria, there's very little access to credit. Now, around 85 to maybe even 90% of all the new cars you see in the UK are bought with some form of credit. So not many people, in fact, almost nobody has, like, I don't know, you see a 50,000 pound car on the street. No one really has 50,000 pounds to just drop and buy like a Toyota or a brand new Mercedes, right? What usually would happen is you'd pay like a deposit of say 5,000 pounds, and then every month you pay, extra, say 500, 300 pounds every month. You're only able to do that because of the access to credit. So you're basically borrowing 50,000 pounds, or someone is lending you 50,000 pounds that they'll pay for the car, and you're just paying back every month, right? So that access to credit means that more people in the UK can buy cars. Similarly, in South Africa, more people in South Africa are able to buy cars because they have access to that credit. Now, in Nigeria, because the financial system is not as complex, basically there's no credit. Credit is very difficult to get. Like, the whole system of borrowing money and loaning money is difficult. And that's because there's not much information around how trustworthy different people are. So if I'm going to borrow money to somebody, I need to kind of know their credit history. So I need to know, have you borrowed money before? Did you pay back? How soon did you pay back? So those type of questions, they need to be saved somewhere so that people can make borrowing and lending decisions. Unfortunately, Nigeria is not that developed. And so because of that lack of access to credit, people can't buy new cars in Nigeria. So people just buy old used cars. And so that's just trying to give you guys an example of how different countries can have different structures. So as a result of that lack of credit in Nigeria, interest rates, not many people are borrowing money, not many people are loaning money, at least with the formal financial system. And so that means that the different tools that might be used in, say, the UK or even South Africa might not work in the same way as they would in say, Nigeria. But the thing is, what I like about economics is you basically learn a toolkit. You basically learn different types of models, different ways of looking at the world, different ways of doing things. So a big research area in economics, for example, is development economics, right? Which you certainly would learn at university level and maybe a bit at A level as well. And so you get these different toolkits, or you get these different tools for a toolkit. And economics, you become a top economist when you know how to deploy those different tools. So you know when to use certain, ways of thinking and certain tools from your toolkit. So I think that's what I probably enjoyed the most about studying economics at A level and even in university, just giving you a different way of looking at the world and different ways of applying different models to different aspects. So I got a question here about A levels. Studying economics at A level helping my degree. Yes, so 100%. So I think that's because at A level you basically learn quite a bit about the fundamentals of economics. So you learn a lot about macroeconomics, a lot of microeconomics, which is kind of what you do in the first year. So definitely my A level did help a lot with my degree in the end. Um, Barclays and international trade. Okay, I'll talk a bit. I'll talk quickly. I think I have like a minute left, but I'll talk quickly about Barclays and when I was in the government. So I did an internship at Barclays Investment Bank in second year, and it was great. It was very exciting stuff. But I think what was missing for me was I didn't get to use so much of the economics I had learned at, say, A level and university. Whereas when I got to the government, that was basically all I did. So in fact, I remember there were times when I would be in the office and I would actually be reading my economics notes to try to figure out something in the office. And for me, that was brilliant. The opportunity to use economics in a way that had a lot of impact. So I guess my motivation for even wanting to work in government was I just wanted to make sure that, at least in the best way I could, that the government or politicians were making decisions based on economic evidence. And so that was kind of why I went into the government, and working there definitely gave me the opportunity to do that. So yeah, no, it was a great space to be in, and also to be with like-minded individuals. So yeah.
Thank you so much for that, David. It was really interesting to hear like you've been able to like be an economist in different places in the world, and so interesting to see the different types of economies and how you've sort of approached that. So thank you so much for your great questions, everybody. And thank you, David, for being our last minute sub. You were great.
No worries.
So our next guest is Astrid Haas, who is an urban economist currently working as a long-term consultant with the African Development Bank. So I'll just leave the floor to you, Astrid.
Thank you very much, Anu. Thanks for having me here. I'm very excited about this event. So as Anu said, my name is Astrid. Usually I would be speaking to you from Kampala in Uganda, where I'm from and where I live. Actually, I'm speaking to you now from Abidjan in Côte d'Ivoire. And it's very interesting to hear David speak about Nigeria's economic woes, because most of the governments and countries I work with aspire to be Nigeria in terms of economic success. So let me talk a little bit more about that, but maybe let me start at the beginning of I guess, where I was, where you or most of you are now. So I did the International Baccalaureate, and I guess I came to economics because when I was making a decision about which IB subjects I should choose, I was super interested in questions of poverty and inequality. I was also super interested in studying medicine. And when I then kind of fast forwarded and I was like, oh my God, medicine would take me 6 years to do, I was like, okay, cool, let me do economics so I can get through my degree. Spoiler alert, I spent just as much time at university I could have to actually do a medicine degree. So in the end, I actually did study that long. But when I went and I did economics as one of my subjects, I think the second reason that I am doing what I do today, and perhaps the primary reason, was I had a really amazing and very inspiring teacher. Both because of the subjects that she sort of addressed and how she addressed them and how she really related the models that David was talking about to the real world. And I'm really interested in the real world, maybe less interested in the theories, more interested in how the theories apply to the real world. But also because she was a woman, and I found that extremely inspiring. We've heard now multiple times there's a diversity problem in economics when it comes to Black economists. Let me tell you, the diversity problem is infinitely bigger when it becomes to Black female economists. So in this case, I feel like any sort of role models you have that are there and that you can feel like, okay, like that's someone I really would like to aspire to be. And that was my economics teacher for me. And then I graduated. I did my first degree. Sorry, I should say, I'm also half Austrian. So I actually went to school in Austria. And then I decided I wanted to leave Austria, see the world a bit. So I did my first degree at the University of Warwick. I didn't study just economics. So none of my degrees were pure economics, because as I said, I was always interested in the sort of interaction. So my first degree, I did economics, politics, and international studies. It's a combined degree, but with a focus on economics. I also did a year in Spain. I'm not sure that that's possible anymore since the UK leaving the EU. It was an amazing program, and it is for anyone who's still an EU student. I see there's some European schools on there. I can totally recommend that you do an Erasmus year. I studied a year of economics in Spain. And I then went on to do a master's straight away. Two reasons for this. One, David mentioned the recession. That was exactly when I finished my bachelor degree. And so there was not super many jobs out there on the market at the time. But secondly, because I knew I wanted to focus in development and development economics. And strangely enough, there's a bit of degree inflation when it comes to people who want to work in development, and a master is kind of like the entry criteria, even for an internship. And so I decided, like, okay, let me go straight to do my master's. And let me change countries again. So at this point, I've done Austria, the UK, Spain. And so I was like, yeah, cool, I'm going to do my master's in Italy. So I did my first year of my master's in Italy at an American university at Johns Hopkins. And then I did my second year in the US just to change countries once more. But I think what was interesting about this experience is that it gave me a lot of experiences studying economics in different parts of the world. But when it comes down to it, if I think about it, I think I had probably across those experiences two female professors of economics. So that is probably affirmation that this is not just a very micro challenge, this is a global challenge. So after I did my degree, and sorry, my master's degree was in international economics and international development, again, a combined degree. I was ready to stop studying at that point and really ready to work in the real world. Now, I always knew that I wanted to move to Africa. I say this now, Africa is an extremely diverse continent, 54 countries, obviously. At the time, I was pretty agnostic as to where I wanted to go. I just really wanted to get there. Partially, it was my desire because I'd never lived there yet. My mother is Ugandan, and I also carry Ugandan citizenship, and I was very passionate about sort of going back to my roots. Partially, I was just interested in development and fascinated by what that means, but I didn't know what area of economics I wanted to do. And so this is another piece of my story, which is I was totally unknowledgeable about what there is out there in terms of jobs, in terms of different areas of economics. And guess what? By the time I finished university, so this is having done economics at school, economics at university in 4 different countries, I didn't actually know the area of economics that I actually practice today. So if you have no idea what you want to do, don't worry, because I didn't until very recently. But I figured this out, and this is how my career journey went, and it's not a straight path at all. So my first job, I entered the Kenyan Civil Service as an Overseas Development Institute fellow. So it's an ODI, is a think tank that places young economists in governments of developing countries. And it's a fantastic fellowship. It gives you very much real world experience of working in a developing country government. I was working as a trade economist, working on the East African Community, which is a regional network, a regional customs union now actually, and was working both on the trade side and on the monetary side. Living in Nairobi, working on the 17th floor of a very big building. And then I was kind of like, interesting, but yeah, no, this is not what I actually want to do. What I really wanted to get down to is I really want to get down to the roots. So then I went and I moved to South Sudan. And at the time it was still Sudan. So I got to spend the independence of South Sudan in South Sudan, which was one of the most memorable days of my life. It was really fantastic. But I think what was more important about my South Sudan experience is that I was working on an agricultural project. So now as an agriculture economist, but in really, really rural South Sudan. So you got to imagine here, David, you're talking about cars. When I was working in South Sudan, the villages we used to walk 4 hours by foot across, some water sometimes to reach them. But what was more fascinating, I think, was we really learned a lot about, for me, it was my most important lessons that I learned in economics. So some of the villages we were working in didn't even have money as a currency because they were so far away, one maize cob for 2 potatoes, etc. And how that, and for me, that was totally fascinating. And I became so I decided I wasn't quite interested in agricultural economics, but I was really interested in understanding households and household decision-making. So very much microeconomics. So then when I was done in South Sudan, I finally got back to my roots. I got a job in Uganda. I worked for a research organization, Innovations for Poverty Action, working in rural Uganda, Kenya, Rwanda, Malawi. And I was working on health and in fact, water and sanitation. So you can see economics really just infiltrates every piece of life. Every little thing, you can find economists working on it, because really economists are fundamentally economics is fundamentally just about the people. So I worked on a water project, actually for the water project for the researcher that won the Nobel Prize last year or 2 years ago, Michael Kramer, the Dispensers for Safe Water project. And then I decided, and I worked for IPA for a couple of years, ended up being the deputy country director in Uganda. Then I decided, now that I'd done a lot of my rural experiences, I was ready to go back to government. And so I then became a country economist for the International Growth Center. So as you can see, my story is very unlinear, very much just trying things out, eliminating options. I decided I didn't quite want to do water. Oh, I should mention, when I was at IPA, I ended up doing a research project in one of the slums in Kampala. And I thought it was really fascinating. So just the same sort of fascination I had in rural South Sudan, I really, the lessons, the economic lessons it was teaching me sort of being based in very much one of the major slums. Some of you may know it if you've seen the Queen of Katwe. I was working in Katwe. Actually, they were filming at the time. I actually met Lupita Nyong'o. That was a cool part of the job too. But if you think of, like, there were just so many small shops or markets, right? So like there'd be lots and lots of women in particular selling like tomatoes all right next to each other. This was like the perfect example of the perfect competition model that they taught you in theory, but that, you know, everyone always struggled to find an example for in practice. And I was like, here's that example. Here's a lot of people selling exactly the same good. The price is exactly the same because everyone's selling the same good next to each other. So then I was like, but why are they doing that? And I wanted to understand that more. And then I came into cities, and I now found the place where that was where my passion lies and what I do today as an urban economist. And I really won't go into it right now, but really encourage anyone who's interested in finding out more about urban economics. I can only highly recommend it. And so then I started as an urban economist, working as a country economist with the International Growth Center, which is a policy research organization run by the LSE in Oxford. Then I moved up in the organization, started within the organization, started the Cities That Work initiative, became the head of Cities That Work initiative, and ultimately became the policy director of the IGC. And then as the policy director of the IGC, I felt I was, you know, the IGC does a lot more than just cities, but I really wanted to get back down to my city's roots. So then I now ended up where I am now as an urban economist with the AFDB. So just finally, before I get to the questions, or maybe I'll get to the questions later. And if I don't get to your questions, I'm really happy if you email me and I can answer them later. But as an urban economist, I essentially work with city mayors and city managers across the African continent. Previously, I also worked in some Asian countries. I work on municipal finance. So that's really how cities are financed. So for example, here's a fun fact. In Kampala, we have the same number of commuters so from Greater Kampala to Kampala, we have the same number of commuters as from Greater London to London, and yet we don't have a public transport system. So you can imagine the traffic we sit in. And so we figure out, like, I work on figuring out how to get the money to how cities can raise the money to be able to invest in transport and infrastructure, particularly because Africa is the fastest urbanizing place in the world, and to some extent even across history. So I know that I have 1 minute left, so let me leave you with 4 thoughts just from my lessons learned. So my first thought is, when you go to university, what you want to do, just do what you want to do. Don't try and plan for subjects that you think may be helpful or here, there, and the other way. You don't know what life is going to take you, so just really do what you want to do, which leads to my second point, which is just follow your passion. As you can see from my story, I didn't even know the job that I do now exists. I didn't even know the area of economics that I do now exists. And I just got there by essentially process of elimination. The third is, don't worry if you don't have a plan. I still have to tell myself that I'm an incredible planner, and sometimes life just takes you. I mean, by the time I got to Uganda, it was my 7th country in 7 years, so it happens. And my fourth one is a shout out to any women who are here. As I noted, economics has a very, very big diversity problem when it comes to women, particularly Black women. I want to tell you, the glass ceiling is real. Unfortunately, no one told me that, and I've just had to experience it. But guess what, guys? We're going to be the generation that smashes that ceiling. So I look forward to welcoming you to helping me do that. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Astrid. Thank you for the last 4 things. It's very inspiring to hear you talk, and I can't wait to break many glass ceilings. For our final amazing guest, we have Joshua Gundy, who is a product operations lead at TikTok, and he's coming to us all the way from the United States. So it's a whole different time zone there, and it's like, I don't know, 4 or 5 a.m. there. So thank you so much for being here, Joshua. And I'll just hand over to you.
Awesome, thank you. Yeah, coming from the States over here in California, I live in Los Angeles, and glad to be here with everyone and talking about, what economics has done for people's careers and what it can do. So for me, my interest in economics probably started in high school. I've always had an interest in government and history generally. When it came down to any honors or APs, there were always history or writing in focus. And then when it came down to me graduating from school here, high school here, I was going to try to take AP economics, like AP econ. I was unable to take AP econ just due to like the time slot differences and things like that. But I knew once I saw that like I wanted to even pursue that on the advanced placement level, that that'd be something I want to explore in undergrad. So I went to undergrad at Michigan State over here in Michigan. It's over in the Midwest part of the States. I then first originally was bouncing back between finance and economics when it came down to what I was going to study at university. Ended up choosing economics for two reasons. The first reason, which is probably more of a straightforward rationale behind it, when I saw median career earnings, looked like economics outweighed finance. So I was like, okay, later on in my career, I'll make more money. And then secondly, was based around just the study of it. I'm very into more of the looking at things from like either a theoretical or more macro kind of perspective. I think finance in itself was very like a sliver of the economic system, while I wanted to learn more and more about economics. So I ended up choosing to be an econ major my sophomore year in college, and it was a great choice. The reason I enjoyed economics is because it's both a quantitative and qualitative field of study. Quantitative, obviously, you know, numbers and measuring things in numbers, and qualitative, being able to actually understand the people aspect of it. As someone who wanted to work in business, I always thought you needed to understand not only the numbers, but you understand the people, because I think the numbers give you the what, but understanding the people's decisions or actions behind it give you the why, which is a great framework that I've used for pretty much every business-oriented role that I've done. While studying economics, I saw how flexible the degree could be. So for me, I originally wanted to work in retail. So I was worked in as an executive development program intern at Macy's, which is a retail store out here in the States. And then I also was at Target as a business analyst intern. But even when I was looking for internships, I saw that I was able to interview and apply for a variety of them, because economics is that quantitative and qualitative kind of degree that people think is, people can slot you into pretty much any role depending on how you talk about the field and how you study it, which was great. So that's one point I wanted to make here, is that economics is a very flexible degree as it relates to paths that you can pursue, which is, you know, for people that want optionality, I think that's a good thing. Some of my favorite classes that I studied when I was studying economics was around labor economics, because I was very curious about just the machine that capitalism is, and how do we, you know, how did it start? How is it working now? And, you know, how can we potentially refine it over time? I also enjoyed international economics, because understanding the economic systems and how they go at play around in different cultures, different parts of the world, I think are also super interesting. So that is a great thing. When I got out while I was getting out of college, I actually ended up not pursuing a full-time job. I ended up doing a startup. I built a startup called Like Me. It was an identity and interest-based social network that we launched on the iPhone around 6 years ago now. So did a little bit of that. And one thing that I saw while building my startup was that there's a lot of startup founders and tech founders with economics backgrounds, which people might not assume that would happen. But I think given the macro and micro study of it, and the quant and the qual that I alluded to earlier, I think that gives people a good framing on like, how should I go about creating a business, not only from a purely like how much money it can make, but like what are the actions that people could take that would help drive the business forward. So I think that's something that I've noticed around the tech industry. After that, we ended up shutting it down. Couldn't raise any venture capital for it at the time. Ended up working in product management. So for everyone here that they may not know what product management is, that's working with engineers and designers to create the apps that folks use. There are product managers that work on the Zoom experience that we are using exactly right now, working with engineers and designers to make this experience as great as possible for folks. I worked at a media company here in the States. After that, I went to grad school. So I went and focused on entrepreneurship at the University of Southern California, or USC for short. And I saw that my economics program helped me there, because when you studied economics in undergrad, the economics that people do in business school is very, I guess, straightforward, a little like things that you may have came across earlier in your time. So ended up doing that. Once I graduated from USC, went and took another product management job at a second phone number company. So you could buy a second phone number and use it for any thing that you might want to use it for, running your business or things like that. And then I landed at TikTok, which I'm sure people know what TikTok is. And I've been working in product operations here. And the way that I've leveraged economics, probably across all of these fields or all these jobs, is that I always started with like, what is the why, and learning the people part of it. Since we know that economics is the study of systems, and people are the people in systems. So like I start from a people-centered approach and then try to quantify the people-centered approach, which economics makes you feel comfortable with the quantitative work that you may have to do, whether it's like running a financial analysis, looking at analytics for a website or a mobile app, things of that nature. I think that economics gives you a certain level of confidence that you're able to go into all these different fields and do all these kinds of different things. One example that I could use that when I used economics in a job was when we were trying to do pricing. So we were trying to price a subscription offering at the company Burner, the second phone number company. And I was trying to figure out like, what's the elasticity of demand for the product that we have. Elasticity, whether it's elastic or inelastic, lets you know if you change the price, how sensitive is your customer to the pricing of what you're offering. So there's some interesting ways that like the early studies of economics can help you frame things for people, and actually using the thought around elasticity actually did help us arrive at a price and really figure out how price sensitive our customers were when we rolled out a subscription. So those are just like some of the things that I've noticed when it came down to how can you apply economics and things like that. And I would say for those, for you all in your current stage of school, I would say if you're interested in economics, know that it can be a very flexible degree. It can definitely take you, you can definitely do a lot with it. You don't only have to do like a finance role or even a more analytical tech role. You can do a lot of roles. You can go into sales. You can go into pretty much anything that you could think you want to go into. Economics can help you get there because, candidly enough, it's a tough enough degree that people think you're smart enough to learn things quickly. So, like, I think that's a good thing. So, anyone that wants to have optionality in their career going forward, I definitely think economics is a good pathway. But I'll stop it here and thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, Joshua. It's really interesting to hear you talk about like your journey in tech and things, because I'm currently studying information system and digital innovation at the London School of Economics. So like it's a lot of what you said is like what I'm interested in and what I'm interested in working after it. So I'm sure you've inspired loads of techies all around in all the schools. So thank you so much again to Astrid and David as well. And now we will go on to question. Okay, so the first question is, do you think degree inflation is a blocker on diversity?
Yes. And I think it's really ridiculous. I will also say I like David, I did start my PhD. However, sadly, and I did it because I'm super interested in it. Sadly, I never got to finish it because I am also a single mom. And between being a single mom, needing to actually earn money, and then trying to do a PhD, something had to give because there's only 24 hours in a day. And sadly, it was the PhD that gave. So I think there's a lot of things to consider when you think about this. And I think degrees and the cost of degrees and the increasing cost of degrees, and then the sort of like checkbox nature of degrees is one of them. But unfortunately, I'm not going to be the one to change that. There's a lot of systems I'm trying to change. That's unfortunately one I haven't yet tackled, but I do think it needs to change.
Yeah, I think I'll just quickly echo what Astrid said. It is a problem, but I think like Felicia just said in the chat, I do have, many friends who work in economic, departments or who are economists and didn't actually do like a master's. So it is possible. It's not just because you do just because you choose to do economics at A level, so then you want to be an economist in the future, doesn't mean you're writing your name down in the book of doing a master's by force at some point. So it's a very good point that not everybody, at least, I know people from Bristol who went straight into like economic consulting, places like Deloitte, and are working as economists there, and also in the government, in the UK government, there's no actual requirement to have a master's to work in the civil service as an economist there. So in fact, the UK government also has a scheme where, I believe, Felicia, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the scheme, hi, there we go, the apprenticeship scheme. Yeah, so similarly, I think you also have that option, that route as well, to become an economist. So, definitely a problem overall. I think in total, what Astrid said is definitely correct. But I think some things are now being done, like the GES scheme, to try and solve that problem.
Thank you. So the next question, I guess this is probably more in Astrid's dynamic, but anyone can answer this question, is do you think there's anything we can do to attract more females to study economics? Like, what do you think can be done, I guess, on a policy basis, but also from fellow economists? And
well, I'm happy for Joshua or David to take that question too. It's something that I think about a lot.
Yeah.
Maybe it'd be good to hear a man's point of view. I'll give 3 quick points, because I mean, this is why I'm here. I think first it's about saying that economics is not just about one thing. Like when I was at uni as well, and this was before the financial recession, because I finished right when it happened, everyone thought economics was about going into investment banking, or the majority did. And that is unfortunately a very male-dominated profession. Also, more and more economics is about sort of maths and science, which again is very male-dominated. So I want to show people there's so much more to economics, and you can like find, I think Joshua, you mentioned it's a super flexible degree. And then finally, like in my case, it's about role models. It's about knowing that there are other people in economics who are like you. But that's my thoughts. Again, I'll be really interested to hear some of your thoughts, David and Joshua, on this question too.
Okay, yeah, sure. No, I think the last point Astrid just made about role models is probably one of the major ones. And I think also as you go up in economics, the worse the problem becomes. So kind of like starting out from A level, and the higher up you go, the worse the diversity problem becomes. And I think, like Astrid said, it's the role model issue is a big one. And that's why I like events like this, because it's trying to show that there are people, hopefully similar to you in these spaces, trying to, to do these things. And the thing as well is I found, at least in my experience, when you're different, your opinion is also very highly valued. So it's you can almost, I mean, it's a weird way to think about it, but like in a sense, there's a very big opportunity there for people to bring in their diverse ways of thinking into the space. So I think the role model issue is a big one. I think the concept of economics being thought of as like a financial thing. Some older people would ask me, "Oh, how can you help me with this accounting problem or this finance problem?" It's like, no. Like, I'm not an accountant. I'm not a investment banker. I'm an economist. Like, I don't know anything about that. So there's also that concept that economics is just about that, but economics is really about people, and solving issues that people are going through. And I think if that message is being pushed more, then hopefully more people from different spaces will be interested. I think Joshua has given some very good examples about how, diverse economics can be. So, it's getting that message across and putting more role models in people's faces, almost, to see that, there are people hopefully like you in these climates.
Joshua, do you have anything to add, or?
No, I was just going to echo everyone else's sentiment. So, no.
Well, this next question is actually specifically for you. It's quite interesting. It says, what is your moral standpoint for working at TikTok, considering it's a firm closely linked to the Chinese government?
I mean, candidly, I'm not going to answer that question. But because I think, I guess morally, I think there's what people assume and then what's, So there's assumptions around what TikTok is, what the true influence on it is, all that kind of stuff. So just to very just candid and straight question, it's like what you may think may not be true. So it's not good to assume that. But for me, on a moral standpoint, I work internally. So if there was anything of issue that I thought was like morally unjust, I wouldn't have been here for almost coming up on 2 years. So yeah, TikTok is on the up and up is what I'll say directly to that.
Okay. And this is a question for everybody. Are there any books that you would recommend that a student can read to get more knowledgeable about economics in general? Like if they're just curious and they want to pick it up? Because just a point for me, I think the reason I studied economics because I got exposed to it very early on. And I think the problem is a lot of people don't understand what economics is. So a lot of girls particularly would assume it's about money and finance, and getting that exposure early on, I think is a huge thing, because a huge part of the problem is the pipeline. So is there any books that you would recommend?
Yeah, I think my top book, I've read many econ books, but to be honest, my favorite is called it's either the Economic Naturalist or the Naturalist Economist. And it's behavioral economics. And for me, if you're interested in it or don't even understand or have no experience with economics, and you just want to see what it's really about, that book is perfect for me. I think it's the Economic Naturalist, and it's written by one of the famous behavioral economics economists. And it basically answers questions like, why are milk cartons like square, not cylindrical? Why are petrol tanks on different sides of the car? Why not just on the left side? Why do bars offer free peanuts, but don't offer free water, right? So I mean, just to give a quick example, like, because a bar wants to sell drinks, right? So they give you free peanuts, so you get thirsty, and they don't give you water because if you drink too much water, you won't buy any of their drinks. So that's an economic concept, right? And it just portrays this in a very simple and interesting way. I think if you read that book, if you're not interested in economics after, then it would definitely pique your interest in economics and show you that it's not just about financials or even accounting. Economics is about people fundamentally and answering very interesting questions. So if you want to go even more advanced, then there's Economic Rules by, I think, Danny Roderick, which basically goes into, okay, there's different economic models that exist. How do you apply them? I think that's also a top tier book.
Maybe I can quickly add. So one thing that really got me interested. So I read a lot of books. I'm on about an average of 2 books a week because we still have curfew in Uganda, so I have a lot of reading time. But one thing that I did, my economics teacher did for me at school, which really piqued my interest, is that every week we had to take an article from the newspaper and attach it to what we had learned in economics that week. And that really made for me the link between, whoa, this is real. This is what I'm seeing in the news. This is what I'm hearing in the news, and I can make the link. So it was just like a paragraph or 2 paragraphs. It wasn't like a massive assignment. It was just for us to make the link. And I think that's really important. The second thing I'll say, because I just saw the question in the chat box, is about sports and economics. One fantastic book I just recently read. I'm a massive, massive football fan, Manchester United, if anyone wants to ask. And yes, I am glad we finally won last night. But a really great book is Soccernomics. It's really fantastic. It links the football and the economics in ways that I hadn't even thought of. It links game theories to penalty taking. And if you are as big a football fan as I am, you can look back at the World Cup and you're like, oh my God, that was so interesting. And guess what? They predicted in that book that England wouldn't win the Euros. And in fact, exactly what they predicted happened. So I would highly recommend Soccernomics.
That's really interesting. My brother's obsessed with football and or soccer, and I've been looking for ways to I'm going to get him this book for Christmas. I just decided. And just to kind of finish off, is there one piece of advice that each of you would give the students watching? And what would that piece of advice be? I know, Astrid, you've already given 4 already, but if you had another one.
mine is just going to be follow your passion. It doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter what you think you should be doing or what you should be like wanting to do. Just follow where your heart is and see where that goes. Life takes you interesting places. It's taken me to places I didn't even know existed. And so that's what I would say. And yeah, for women, let's smash that ceiling.
Okay, I got one. I think my main one outside of like, just like, I think economics is a good field of study. Build genuine relationships, whether personally or professionally. Those will come to bear fruit at some point. So I would say like you don't want to build relationships with people either professionally or personally just when you want something, but you want to build them genuinely, and not just people who are above you, but people who are in the same spot as you. Because as you all grow in your careers and you do what you're going to do, that person could be over there doing something that's interesting and you could go do that with them and things of that nature. I think sometimes, especially at the ages that you all are, it's very easy to think that you want to reach to like the CEO or the CFO or like those people, but the people sitting right next to you in class right now are the people that you really want to start building those relationships with, because those will bear fruit years to come.
No, that's a very top one from Joshua. I think talking to people is very important. I think at school, you always know what's going to happen next year. Like, okay, year 7, then year 8, then year 9, then year 10. When that's over, it becomes very difficult to figure out what the next step is. You might find yourself in a certain environment and a certain climate where everyone kind of thinks, okay, this is where we should go next, because there's no next. Okay, for example, university, let's all apply to investment banking, right? And if you're not careful, that might not be what you actually want. So if you're not talking to enough people outside of your environment, you might not figure that out. So just definitely, like Joshua said, like talk to people when you need something, when you don't need something. Like even you can connect with people on LinkedIn randomly. People are always happy to talk about their jobs. Just be like, hey, I'm interested in what you're doing. Do you mind, a quick chat over coffee, or even on Zoom these days? People will be very happy to talk to you. Like maybe you get a few people who don't reply. That's okay. But definitely talk to people. That's a very key one. And the last thing I would say, I guess my own genuine one is, it's okay not to know. Nobody knows what the plan is going to be. Like Astrid says, 7 countries. I've moved from Nigeria back to the UK, back again, and no one knows where they're going to end up. And it's okay. Just try and be comfortable with that, which is very difficult. Easier said than done, I know. But you figure it out eventually, just by talking to people, and you learn more about yourself each day. But it's okay not to know what it is exactly you want to do.
Thank you guys so much. And just to emphasize, economics is for everyone. That's the whole point of this event. And we hope you guys choose this as a career, or just look into it more, or tell someone about it after this event. I would love to thank Felicia and the Black Economics Network for doing this event in partnership with us. And yeah, thank you so much to all our panelists, and we hope to keep in touch.
Thank you so much for attending.
Thanks for organizing this.
Thanks for having us.
Bye, everyone.